You're supposed to like, come on.
Oh, I thought you were just having a moment. Okay. Welcome to Don't Get Your Hopes Up. It's a podcast with me and Mike. Don't get your hopes up.
Oh, it's perfect. Man. God. I'm feeling this, man. I'm feeling this. It was good.
Yeah, we're a jam band now.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
It's Sunday.
It is Sunday. I have to work tomorrow. Thanks for reminding me.
I'm sorry. I mean, so do I guess, but... Jeez.
I might be.
Oh, God. Here we go again. All right.
Yeah.
So we did one show in January.
We did.
And it was basically Nothing Happens in January, the show.
Yes.
And now it's the first show of February. And
we're halfway through February.
Yeah, and lots has happened. Like we were right. Nothing happened in January, and then February, shit's stacking up already.
Yeah. Like January was too much like politics happening and not enough like entertainment stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
And February, I mean, all of the politics are still happening, but there's also all of this other shit. So we actually have stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yep.
And useful for a show in which we attempt to talk about things.
Right. Yes.
So speaking of things to talk about, I kind of want to lead off with this one because I just find this interesting. Twitch has decided to become Reddit, I guess, with communities.
Yeah.
And okay, so I have yet to see what the point of these is, to be completely honest. That doesn't mean that there isn't a point, just that I haven't seen it yet.
Sure.
It kind of appears like, for the most part, it just appears to be this extra thing that you can stream to, and like be part of an extra group or something.
Yeah.
Which is cool and all, but they already had teams, so like, are communities supposed to replace teams, or I don't know. It seems like they announced it, they released it, and no one really has any idea what they're supposed to do with them. It's kind of the gist of what I'm getting so far. Yeah.
So, if you've been living under a rock, communities, the way the system works is you could go through. Anybody could do this, by the way. It's not restricted to partners or anything. You basically have to have an account that it's like, I think 90 days in, and that's pretty much it. I could be wrong, but you can go and create a community for whatever it is that you like. Let's say you stream to social eating often, but you're upset because there isn't, like, maybe you're like a jjamyeon like specialist or something like that, or kind of fanatic, right. So you want a category just for that. So when you go there, it's nothing but people in social eating that are eating specifically jjamyeon. So that's what that's for. It could also be for games, I guess. It could be for games, for like speed running, for example.
Yeah, like I can see a speedrunning community actually working pretty well. Mm-hmm. Like that makes a lot of sense, because when you watch speedruns, you don't necessarily watch, like, I like to watch Metroid speedruns, but I don't, like, if I'm looking to see who's streaming Metroid speedruns right now, I have to look through like 8 different games to see who's on. If nobody that I follow is streaming at the moment, of course. So I can see it for speedrunning. That actually makes a lot of sense. A lot of the communities that have been made so far are either like, this is my group of friends, that's what a team is for. That's like Hammer Squad-esque sort of communities being made. It's like, okay, yeah, but
last I heard, teams were like managed. Well, last I heard was like a while ago, but like team management was either non-existent for people except for unless you got in early or something. And also very difficult to get out of if you're associated with a team. For a long time, I think I was part of a team.
Yeah, we were part of the Game Breaker team for a long time. I eventually just left it.
Yeah.
And like that's fine if communities are just supposed to replace teams. Like that makes sense. I've been seeing a lot that's like, this is the World of Warcraft community, and that I don't understand because there's already the World of Warcraft category.
Yeah.
And so now I have two places that I can look for the same streams, except in one of them there's going to be less people because you have to opt into it. I don't know, it's weird.
The idea, I guess, would be in like WoW's case, it could be gold farming would be a subcategory or something, or like, I'm sorry, not necessarily, I should say gold farming, actually like auction house type stuff. Or because there's people that'll sit there and they'll stream it. They'll sit there and just basically work the auction house and people will watch it. And so that's a category. People are interested in that kind of stuff. Maybe it's just like, maybe just rogue PvP, maybe if that was a big enough of a thing by itself, then
I guess I can see that.
But still though, like, I mean, I
think the user base just isn't really, I don't think they've properly educated the user base on what the hell you're supposed to do with these things.
Yeah. I mean, like right now there's Rainbow-6-Siege. There's Rainbow Word 6 Siege. There's Rainbow Number 6 Siege. There's Rainbow 6 PC. There's Rainbow 6 Siege PS4. There's Rainbow Word 6 Siege. There's the thing is, like, there's no moderation. There's no merging. And once you own one, it's yours. Like I own an SFW. It's mine. And so I made a non-safe word category on Twitch.
Which can never have anything streamed in it. Because streaming to it is actually against TOS.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's just like it just feels like it was a little the biggest problem I have with it, like I don't mind that people can freely go in there and make their own stuff. It's like it reminds me of like the AOL chat room days when you had just like all these variations of words or numbers or whatever added to whatever the category was, simply because people wanted to own their own slice of that community. And
it's like old like QuakeNet IRC.
Yes.
Where it's like, I'm music. Well, I'm musical. I own hash musical. Like I own hash best music
UK or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it got really sloppy. And then we kind of steered away from that, I thought. Like, but the biggest problem I have with it is that there's no way to get a notification that I can see if somebody is streaming in a community that you want. You can't follow a community. Like there might be somebody streaming in a community that I've set up, and I would have no idea because I don't have there's no notifications, there's no follow this community or whatever yet. And that part, I think that would have been a critical part I understand it's beta, but I feel like the only thing this beta showed was that people could come up with creative ways of like saying whatever category it is they want to be in. And that's it. That's all we've proven. We haven't actually, there is no community in it yet because I mean, maybe somebody has streamed in the /BFF. Maybe someone streamed it /NSFW. I would have no idea because I don't see a way to follow it.
Yeah. And like Twitch it's kind of their MO to be like, okay, we've got this idea. It's kind of a half of an idea. Let's just put it out there and see what happens. And they've done a lot of weird things like that in the past. A lot of things that are now like fully standard came out of, we've got this weird idea. Like emotes originally was like, we're just going to kind of like sub emotes in particular kind of came out of, we're going to just give a few random people emotes. And then that eventually turned into, all right, let's get a whole system in place so that we can have people get emotes and everything. So I think communities right now on Twitch, they need to do a little bit more to educate the user on what exactly they're for, so that we end up with less of the rainbow.6 _ _ 7 siege 76. And I don't know, just try and focus it a little bit more on what the heck are we supposed to do with these things? Because like what happened immediately was like a whole bunch of people just went and started, it was something that we were watching at work, a whole bunch of people just went and started registering every variation of Warcraft and World of Warcraft that they could. And the reason that people do that isn't because they're like thinking to themselves necessarily like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna make this thing and it's gonna be awesome and great and everybody's gonna really, really enjoy. This will be a great new way to find World of Warcraft streams, because you can already find World of Warcraft streams like that are categorized as World of Warcraft. That category already existed. It was happening because no one has any idea what the thing is for and how it's going to be implemented in the rest of the site.
Mm-hmm.
So you go, maybe it'll be important for me to own the World of Warcraft community on Twitch. I have no idea. Yeah, it's strange. Like, and I could also see, like, I stream World of Warcraft the vast majority of the time. I'm known in the World of Warcraft community. I can sort of see why it might be beneficial to be tagged as something related to World of Warcraft, even when I'm playing, like, I don't know, Job Simulator or something, because people go, oh, it's that guy from the World of Warcraft. I know him from the World of Warcraft. I'll watch this other stream.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I can come up with all sorts of use cases for it. I just don't know which one, if it's all of them or whatever it is that Twitch is. It's almost like the early days of Reddit right now, I guess, where nobody really knew what to do with Reddit, and it was just kind of this weird. God, what was the thing before Reddit that everybody used? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It's dead now. It was like
Dig.
Dig, yeah. Yes. It's like, oh, this is a weird version of Dig where things get categorized into different things. Well, whatever. I guess we'll hang out here. And then Dig exploded and everyone was like, well, Reddit's around, and then Reddit became huge.
Yep.
It's kind of like the early days of Reddit where nobody really knows what they're supposed to be doing with the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully as time goes on, like, I guess there's a few communities right now that like are starting to grow fairly rapidly, but the person in charge just has no idea what they're doing because all they did was just register the thing.
Yeah.
It's weird that anyone can just... I do think it's kind of weird that I can make a community and just anybody can join that community, but I'm still in charge of it. Like, what am I in charge of at that point? I own the name, and obviously you can do some sort of like, well, kick this person out of the community, etc. sort of thing, but you can just, like, unless they're a partner, which you're probably not going to kick out of your community anyway.
Yeah.
They just make a new account or something and join right back. I don't know. It's weird.
It is weird.
I think it needs some ironing out. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think it needs some...
Yeah,
it needs some UX.
I think like being able to follow a community is a big deal. I also think that being able to, or maybe even like taking a page out of the My Free Cams community, the way they do it. They have a like a featured or a public room, and when you go there, there's usually at least one cam model that's on. And she's not streaming directly to that room. She's part of whatever that featured rotation is, I guess. But when you're in that public room, like, this is according to a friend. When you're in there, if something's happening on like another stream, then people will be like, "Oh, hey, this is happening on this stream," whatever, and then people can toggle over to it. So it's kind of like this centralized kind of hub. And I feel like communities could have filled that gap if communities had like its own chat room or something. Like if there was a speedrunner chat room. And then they were able to watch, kind of like a hosting works, right? Within the community page, being able to watch what's going on. And then below it, it shows maybe the other people that are streaming, just like thumbnails or whatever. And then when they click on it, it loads up in the main screen, just like hosting again. But their chat room doesn't necessarily change. They could choose to join that person's chat, talk to them directly. But if maybe they want to hang out with a bunch of other people who are speedrunning fans.
Yeah, like a... that would actually be a really good idea. Like if there was just some sort of shared chat channel for communities, where the speedrunning is a great example for that, because you could be like, okay, yeah, we're gonna watch this guy do a Metroid speedrun. Oh, it's great. He's finished, so he's done for the day. Let's keep watching another guy do a speedrun, but now, this really famous speedrunner he's doing, I don't know, fucking Zool or something. Let's go watch this guy speedrun Zool.
Yeah.
Like that would be really cool, and like they'd be able to talk amongst themselves. It would help drive viewership to individual streamers with like almost as like a like if someone's actively changing the channel and sort of controlling it and saying this is the next person that's up, this is the next person that's up, and so on.
Yeah,
That would be cool. The sort of right now it's basically a second category, which has some use cases, but I don't think people are using them that way. And I don't know, it's just weird. It needs extra functionality outside of just being a second category, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and it's beta. I guess there's other stuff they could do. I just feel like it's like really, really beta.
Yeah.
Like really beta. Beta, usually when something hits beta, that means that, well, in games anyways, it means that it's relatively feature complete and it's ironing out the bugs for release. Obviously not the case when it comes to communities.
Yeah. So speaking of ironing out the bugs, by which I mean speaking of new systems with mixed response, what the heck is Valve doing with Greenlight? What is this? So they're planning to actually close down Greenlight and replace it with a quote-unquote more formalized process for developers to submit their games. Which, okay, this... that sentence sounds fine, but it's gonna... I'm just gonna read this quote from the Gamma Sutra article because it explains it pretty directly. The most important takeaway for devs is that Steam Direct is currently being conceived of, Steam Direct being the replacement for Greenlight. It's currently being conceived of as a system where you submit paperwork to Valve and then pay a fee every time you want to put a game on Steam. If your game sells, you recoup that fee. If not, no dice. So it's basically, whereas Greenlight was this sort of, or still is at this point, this sort of like, I have an idea and a will and a way, and I'm just going to pick a way in Unity or something, and eventually, hopefully, a game will happen. I'm going to put this idea on Greenlight, and we'll see where it goes. This is more of a, I've begun developing this game. I have made enough progress on it that I'm willing to pay a fee to list it on the... If the fee's like $5, then that doesn't really matter, but I doubt that the fee would be that low from a company like Valve.
Yeah, it's supposedly like 5,000, upwards of 5,000.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
But as low as $100. But the thing is, we don't really know exactly what it's gonna be. Yeah, it could just be $100, which is like, if you're making a game and you can't afford $100.
But there's so many great games, and like, so I was talking with, I don't remember who it was. It was somebody at work I was talking with the other day about mods and how mods aren't really that much of a thing anymore. There's a few games like Trials where there's sort of a built into the game UGC thing. But the idea of, okay, I took the base code of this game, made some mods for it, and now it's something completely different, is kind of limited to basically Skyrim. And there's a few other games that have much less involved modding communities, but modding communities nonetheless. But that used to be kind of how you got into game development. Okay. Was you'd like a lot of the people that I work with, like they came into the industry because they made a mod for like Battlefield or something. And that was how they got started. And that's not something that you can really do that much anymore, because increasingly, largely because mods is also if a game can be modded, it can also probably be hacked. So increasingly developers are starting to move away from modding being a thing. So nowadays it's more like, okay, I'm going to learn Unity and I'll make a game in that, or I'm going to plug away in just Java for a long time and eventually come up with this thing called Minecraft and sell it for $1 bajillion. It's increasingly like things like Greenlight are how you get into the industry now. So if I'm a broke college student trying to get into the industry, just got out of college, for example, or I'm going to be graduating soon and I want to have something to show for it in terms of actual, outside of just like, I've got my degree and I've got whatever projects I was working on while I was in college. Like, you want to have your own like unique project to be able to shop around to people once you graduate. Right now, Greenlight is kind of a good way to look into something like that and start getting some traction on a project like that. to hopefully have something coming out of that and into your career.
Yeah.
A broke college student isn't going to drop $100 to put something on Steam.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm a bit torn over the $100 thing. I know that I said that. Oh, if you can't afford $100, $100 here is different than $100. Probably literally anywhere else.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah. So,
$100 in California is what I paid for dinner. $100 in Michigan is what I paid for dinner for the month.
Yeah. So pardon me on that. But the thing is, there needs to be something in place, because there's so much fucking garbage. There's so much.
That's true.
And I know that people. I mean, I'm playing bloody boobs right fucking now, dude. Like it's like. There is very little. I don't want to say there's very little went into the game, but there is not as much to justify the flagrant use of titties in this game as a, because there were some games that I played before that it's like, okay, yeah, they use sex to sell the game. However, the game is really good, right? That's happened a few times in the past. But still, like, look at the visual novels that we get. And I understand some people are into that, which is fine. I'm not really a big visual novel guy after fucking the Island or whatever the hell that shit was called. But still, like, some people are into it, and that's great. But we don't need to have, like, 20 or 30 of them every day. There's no way that there is that many good visual novel titles that come out on a daily basis. And it just clogs things up. A developer might get, featured alongside, 3... visual novels, maybe one game maker asset flip or something. Like there's and then that's it. And then he's featured for like 3 hours, and then all of his several months or even years of work is just gone because he didn't exist anywhere to get any kind of traction.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to completely sound like I'm shitting on Steam's new thing at the moment, because like you said, there is a lot of just complete garbage on Greenlight right now that should not be there. You could possibly make the argument that the solve for that is stricter moderation policies on Greenlight, but that gets really tough because what do you say that you need to moderate out of like a half-assed idea? Because maybe, what did you call it, blood and titties or whatever?
Yeah, bloody boobs. Close enough though.
Blood and titties. Maybe it turns out to actually be an amazing game, theoretically, based off of the initial description that they put in when they start going to Greenlight. You can't tell at that point, and then 8 months later, oh yeah, no, this is just garbage. Like, I guess we should probably remove this now. I don't know. It'd be tough to actually moderate it.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just Valve saying, okay, Greenlight, sure, but we need something in place that can help. Like, we've talked so much on this show about the early access issue.
Yes.
And how early access is basically released for too many companies these days. Maybe this is them trying to restrict that a little bit more. So at the very least, if something does go up on early access, then it's at least a little bit more likely to ever actually happen. I don't know. It sounds like it could be bad, but it also sounds like it could be good. I guess this is
I think that it's going to be really hard for it to be bad. There's probably, there probably is going to be a game developer out there somewhere who's sitting on a gold mine of a game, and in an alternate timeline, he became the next Notch. But this time, it just didn't work out, and that sucks. But the community, I feel, as a whole, needs some kind of shit filter to just make the Steam storefront. Finding new games and finding new things just a little bit easier.
Yeah, and it's also kind of, I guess, looking into the sort of paperwork that they're going to require from people. They're asking for, like, it's more than just, what is your name? What is the game you would like to make? Do you like to make games? Do you think you will make this one? No, it's like they're asking for personal or company verification. They're asking for tax documents. Steam actually described it as similar to the process of applying for a bank account. So they're going to ask for a fairly serious amount of info
I thought you were
from people.
I thought you were gonna say similar to trying to get into this country right now.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be quite that difficult. Jesus Christ.
It sounds like some pretty extreme betting, dude.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they ask for a lot of shit because they want
They asked for a lot of shit. Man, now I'm sad again. Thanks a lot. They asked for a lot of shit, and so honestly, it just sounds like what Steam is doing is trying to say, okay, we need to up the quality and up the accountability for people that are trying to get into this, because we need to make sure they're actually serious about trying to make a video game and they're not just coming out with blood and titties. But what, bloody boobs?
Yeah, bloody boobs. No, you're fine with bloody titties, dude. It's fine. I bet you I could probably Google that and it might come up. Matter of fact,
safe search.
Let me see.
Safe search.
Bloody titties game.
No.
Bloody titties game. Look at that. It fucking comes up. Number 1.
Okay, good. That's still a better name than bloody boobs. Jesus. Anyway. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this actually works out. Hopefully they end up at a fee that is actually sensible. And I think the fact that it's recoupable, the fee is recoupable, still does lend some credence to it. Like, it's kind of it's like starting any business, really. Like, right? Like, if you're going to start getting into the game development industry, even as an indie developer, you do kind of have to spend money to make money, and this just sort of shows that you're willing to spend money to make money. They do earn the fee back once their game is actually selling. Mm-hmm. So that it's not like they're completely out their $100 or whatever. And from my understanding, it's not that your $10 game, you sold it 10 times. Hey, your $100, you made it back. It's that it will actually, on top of the fact that you're earning whatever it is that you're charging for the game, they will also give you back the fee.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think we don't know enough to really settle on a.
Sure.
At least I feel like I don't know enough about this to really settle on an opinion on this thing just yet. But it's interesting. There's there's been a lot of calls even in the indie, mostly from the player's perspective of trying to have more restriction on when a game even gets released.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of taking advantage of the consumer happening in that space right now.
Yep.
Like bloody boobs.
Like bloody It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad.
So, speaking of bloody boobs, by which I mean speaking of something you really don't want to see, by which I mean speaking of something you really, really don't want to see in VR, by which I mean speaking of things that happen that you don't want to see as a VR company. Oculus lost a big fucking lawsuit to Zenimax.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, so there was apparently this lawsuit. I hadn't even heard about this until it was finalized. But apparently Zenimax sued Oculus. Zenimax being the company behind like Elder Scrolls and stuff.
Yep.
Not Bethesda, but like Zenimax. Anyway, separate but similar. Whatever.
Sure.
So Zenimax sued Oculus for they actually sued and asked for $2 billion in compensation and an additional $2 billion in damages, claiming that Oculus built its actual headset using technology and information illegitimately obtained from ZeniMax. So basically saying that Oculus stole the Oculus from ZeniMax. The jury ended up deciding that Oculus did not, I guess the term is misappropriate trade secrets. However, they did rule that the co-founder, Palmer Luckey, violated an NDA with Zenimax. So it's a little bit less extreme than you stole your headset from us.
Yeah.
But still pretty bad. So as a result, Oculus. So they've broken it down this way. Oculus owes Zenimax $200 million for the broken NDA, plus $50 million for copyright infringement, and another $50 million for false designation. I don't know what false designation is, but it apparently costs $50 million. And then Palmer Luckey and Brendan Uribe, I don't actually know how to pronounce his last name, the two co-founders of Oculus.
Probably Uribe. Is it Uribe?
It's Iribe. So Uribe would make some sense. Sure. Brendan and Palmer. So Palmer, this is a little bit weird. Palmer owes $50 million and Brendan owes $150 million. Despite the fact that Palmer was the one that actually violated the NDA. And that's both for false designation. And apparently this case has been around since like 2014. It's been going for a long time. And it just now finally came around to an end, and Oculus has to give a grand total of $500 million to Zenimax.
Yeah, it goes pretty deep. Like, they actually had Zuckerberg take the stand for testimony and all that stuff. And he said, like, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out like what went wrong and at what point could they have stopped this from happening and becoming a thing, or a bigger thing that it already is. And I guess this was to assess damages too, by the way, because
that makes sense.
Because you want to see, like, is it like an innocent thing that just a couple of dudes like fucked up or something or whatever, or is this something that goes up higher up the chain? Because then, if Facebook was involved and they knew that this was that they're writing off of like some stolen code or whatever, then obviously they should be charged like $1 billion or something, you know?
Right.
So. One thing that Zuckerberg said was they made the deal and they started due diligence on Friday, and then they signed the paperwork on Monday. So if you're not familiar with due diligence means, basically whenever you speak to like an investor, or maybe you're an investor and you're looking to like acquire a company or maybe buy into a share of a company that's significant, you kind of want to know what's going on within that company first. And so what happens is you sign a bunch of NDAs saying they're not going to steal anything that you see, and then you send in your experts to go take a look at the code, take a look at the product, take a look at whatever it is that you're about to throw money at, and then they come back to you and they say, all right, so this is what we found, this needs work, this is this and that, whatever, and they kind of give you a breakdown of whatever it is. That way you can make a more informed decision on maybe not necessarily whether or not you want to even be involved, well, but it could conclude that, but also what the valuation is. Like, maybe I don't want to give you asked for $100 million. Well, now I found out that your code is shit and whatever, and it's going to take us X amount of months to straighten it out, so we're only going to give you guys $25 million. So that's kind of how due diligence works. It's a CYA for the investor. It takes time. Signing the paperwork on a Friday, or making the deal on a Friday, and then signing the paperwork on a Monday, nothing happened over that weekend.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Their due diligence was having a lovely evening at home.
yeah, exactly. So you can't. So on that front, as absurd as that sounds, because obviously Zuckerberg wanted to get in early. And he probably did his own due diligence and research and everything, being who he is. He probably has some idea.
Yeah. And Oculus at the time, like, they were pretty well known at that point. So it's not like he need to go, oh, you're going to do what's a VR sort of, like, they had a product that was actually demonstratable. So he probably didn't need too much in the way of NDA to know that they wanted to purchase the thing.
Yeah. So, and so, yeah, like that as absurd as that sounds, going Friday and then Monday, it actually ended up being a really great benefit for Zuckerberg and Facebook, because you can't say, like, if he came in and said, yeah, we spent months vetting them and making sure that, everything was straight. It's like, well, then you probably came across this, so therefore we have to kind of assign the blame on you, and therefore the $2 billion or whatever it was that Zenimax is asking for, that's what they're going to get. When in this case, now it's like, okay, well, they're only going to get $500 million. Still, only is such a weird word to use there, because $500 million is fucking massive.
Yeah.
Just massive.
Yeah. So yeah,
unrelated. Elder Scrolls 6 announced, and 7 and 8.
yeah. Yeah, it'll take more than 500 million to develop one Elder Scrolls game at this point.
Yeah.
If they're gonna one up Skyrim. But yeah, this is another one that's interesting, and I don't know how much is like. I don't really know how much this is going to affect Oculus overall. I kind of feel like Oculus is sort of they're starting to sort of lose the. Not, I don't know about like financially, but they're starting to lose to the Vive and to the PSVR in terms of people's VR options of choice. They came out with their, I forget what they call it, the new controllers for the Oculus that at least brought them up to Oculus Touch, yeah. That at least brought them up to having a controller that you could like do things like, I don't know, play basic VR games with. As like time has gone on and people have started to figure out VR, you need to have separate hands sort of thing for so many games is really, really important. Like trying to play Job Simulator with one controller is just no, don't do that. It's no fun. You need two hands. And so they've gotten themselves up till that point. But the Vive was already way ahead of them in regards to that, and they've pretty solidly established themselves as the premier VR thing. And now the PSVR is out, and it's not really any better than the Oculus, I wouldn't say, but man is it cheaper and man is it easier to set up and use. Like the fact that you don't need a high-end PC, all you need is a PS4 to make this thing work. It ends up being about $600 to $800 cheaper, depending on the rig you actually build. If you already have the computer, then sure. But if you're looking at like mainstream markets, then that's important.
Yeah, and Oculus kind of shot itself in the foot with they have their Oculus Home, and they're trying to create like a closed system. They're trying to basically do like Apple does with OS X and all that and iOS. They're trying to create like a closed system, and unfortunately, so Apple was able to get away with that because they've been doing it for so long with Mac, right? With Macintosh. And then they just kind of took that same concept into smartphones when smartphones were not mainstream, right? So they were kind of able to get away with that. They're the ones that brought into mainstream. They sold the most. They got the most developers on board. Guess what? They can make the rules when it comes to how open they want to make their system, and they didn't. And so Oculus, for some reason, felt that, oh yeah, we could go ahead and do this, but it was kind of a silly decision considering Vive is like, it's like having Android already developed, and then the iPhone comes out and it's like, yeah, we have a closed system. Everyone on Android is like, well, fuck you. People that have Android right now are saying that. Imagine if Android was established back when the iPhone was announced. iPhone would go nowhere. It'd be dead. And that's kind of what Oculus Home is doing. Is like they try to create this closed system initially, and everybody else in the gaming community was like, fuck you. And people that if you bought one and if you bought a Rift and then you try to fire up a Steam game, half the time it wouldn't work because you have to like load up Steam VR and I have Oculus Home running, and it just became like a huge pain in the ass. I have a Vive, courtesy of the community. I have a Vive, and it's awesome. And I could use a third-party program so I could play Oculus Home games, which I won't do because like 90% of those games are, guess what, available on Steam.
Yeah.
So yeah, they kind of screwed themselves there, and I feel like they now they've been fighting kind of an uphill battle. Oh, and you mentioned too, like the Oculus Touch versus which I hear is still not as good as the wands or whatever the Vive has.
Yeah,
but those things, they're gonna get better. It's just they started off on the way wrong foot.
Yeah, and I think Oculus kind of has a little bit of first generation issues as well, where like they were kind of the first ones to really start pushing this thing, and they had to fight a lot of the fights that the Vive and the PSVR didn't have to, because by the time the Vive and the PSVR really started rolling around, everybody sort of understood that VR was a thing, and that it's actually working this time. We can actually do this. there's so much other drama going on around Oculus right now too. Like we didn't even mention any of the stuff with like John Carmack and id Software and like that extra drama and apparently I was just reading the Polygon article on this as well. Apparently Zenimax is saying, well, we didn't get our full 2 billion, so what we're going to do is seek an injunction to stop the sale of Oculus Rift headsets. Like at least temporarily. Yeah. So there is a lot.
There's like the hard drive wipe thing. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Oculus may be in trouble, which is a little bit sad, but I have a PSVR, so I don't mind.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help the VR community as a whole, but you know, there's really no one to blame but themselves at this point.
Yeah. Yup. So speaking of lawsuits and things going very horribly for certain people involved, you remember a while back when we were talking about those illegal like CS:GO gambling rings?
Yeah.
Well, someone thought, hey, you know what? Illegal gambling, FIFA. How can I combine these two things? And so there's a couple of YouTubers. Interestingly, these guys were from the UK. And they were running a betting website through the FIFA video game, but they had it like set up in this weird way where like you had currency in FIFA 17. You use that currency to bet on real life football games through their website they called Foot Galaxy. With FUT, like football sort of galaxy. You could bet on, you use it to bet on games on, I'm saying football in terms of soccer, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Then transfer those winnings back into FIFA, but then that currency could then be transferred back into, like, you couldn't transfer it directly into real money, but you could sell it through like an online black market. Other people could buy it from you for real money and then use it to buy whatever it is they want. So, about it.
If they were licensed for any of this stuff, or if they had done their own research and got everything here legitimized, this wouldn't be necessarily a big deal. It'd be similar to like Bitcoin or something. Well, not quite as big, but right, like the gambling on video games is something that's not going to go away. It's only going to get bigger.
Yeah,
you just have to, I guess, just do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like this is yet another case of someone going and then real money, and then you go whoa, hang on.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's funny, like, you know, FIFA. If you're not familiar with, if you don't play sports games, and you feel like, you know, no one plays sports games or whatever, like, you were wrong. Sports games, especially FIFA, I think is like probably the most played game right now. And I'm just pulling that out my ass, but if they're not, I bet you they're fucking close. FIFA is massive worldwide, just like freaking soccer / football is. It's, and then like NBA 2K is also a lot bigger than some people realize. And so it's not surprising. Actually, it is surprising that it took this long for something, or gambling site, to come up and then get caught, or I guess get, you know, prosecuted by, in this case, the UK Gambling Association or whatever. But we talked about this with CS:GO. It's like, you know, there's a reason why these things are like, gambling is such a heavily regulated entity. Like, it's like you need to have people to regulate these things, because otherwise it's too easy for people to scam other people. And if you're going to scam people, you need to be able to do it legally. and that's it. And, you know, these things are there to make things, you know, relatively fair. There's a ton of rules. I think I went off on a crazy rant last time we did this about gaming associations. But
because like being from Vegas, you've obviously been exposed to a lot of that over time.
And it's the same thing. Like, these idiots sat down and they're like, we could make some money making a game. Why hasn't anybody thought of this yet? We should do it. And then we should promote it to our YouTube users about disclosing that we run the site. Yeah. Oh, smart guys.
Yeah. It is interesting that this is the first time that the UK specifically has cracked down on people for this. Just that sentence is interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if like these are the first idiots that actually hosted and lived in the UK. Instead of hosting in like, I don't know, Zimbabwe or some shit, like host somewhere else.
Yeah, one of them was from Dorset and the other was from Essex.
Mm-hmm.
So like they actually lived in the UK. Yeah. They pleaded guilty, or at least admitted to the charges. So RIP.
Yeah, RIP.
RIP.
Foot Galaxy.
But speaking of balls, by which I mean speaking of sports games, with balls, this is really interesting actually. So the NBA is actually partnering with Take-Two to form their own esports league around NBA 2K, the video game.
Yeah.
So they're starting a second sub league that involves people playing NBA 2K. That's really interesting for reasons that may not be immediately apparent. It's okay, like at first glance you're like, okay, cool. They're trying to get their little sub-product into, let's say sub-product in meaning that obviously the NBA's main product is actual basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But NBA 2K, they're like, okay, well, let's try and find a way to make this into an esport. And it's certainly not the first time that someone's gone, well, if you're going to make an esport, why not start with a sports game and see what happens?
Sure.
It hasn't usually been terribly successful, but it hasn't had something like the NBA behind it before.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. What I think is more interesting about that, though, is if this works, what's the next step? Right? Like if the NBA gets behind an esports league for NBA 2K, at what point do they or another similar organization say, okay, esports works. Well, now let's have a Madden esports league.
Yeah.
Now let's have a FIFA esports league without gambling in it. Now let's have, and like as that starts to catch on a little bit more, assuming that this works, as that sort of thing starts to catch on a little bit more, eventually one of those organizations will be like, okay, well, and Counter-Strike's been working really well, and League of Legends has been working really well. Why don't we look into other games that aren't based on sports to start doing this? So this is a potential for another sort of influx into the esports ecosystem from organizations sort of trying to figure out esports and make it happen. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
It is. It's the way they've laid it out is they're going to have an actual like representative for the team, like for whatever actual team that is, like, you know, the Knicks or something. There's going to be like the Knicks, the esport representative for them, playing as the Knicks in NBA 2K18 or whatever, right? Just NBA 2K. And I feel like, you know, I feel bad for that guy because it's one thing to be on a team and have a lot of pressure when you're on a team. It's another to be the guy. To be the guy where like not only do you have to be the best, right, and not let your team down, but like these are like you are gonna go into this and meet these, you know, someone's gonna be sitting next to LeBron and like trying to impress him with his NBA 2K skills, you know, and you know LeBron plays fucking 2K, you know, so it's like it's a lot of pressure there. I think, you know, I would watch it like. It's I don't watch. Occasionally I'll catch a couple of games, NBA games. I feel like they're too high scoring games for me to watch. It's like, oh, another score, another score, another score, right? But yeah, I would totally watch someone playing 2K like competitively. And I wonder would they do it like in the arena? Like that'd be kind of, it would be weird, but I guess it would.
Like sitting across from each other in the center of like the actual court.
Yeah, like on one hand, I feel like, hey, that'd be kind of cool. On the other hand, I'd feel like that's really dumb. And people might look at it and be like, who are these two nerds playing video games? But God, you know, like I wanna like hit up my my brother-in-law Scott, because he's like a sports fucking nerd. Like every sport, like is it a sport? Scott's into it, right? Like that's kind of how he is. I wonder what his take is on this, because when the collegiate thing was going on with Heroes of the Dorm, he kind of laughed it off, right?
Right, yeah.
Which is not, you know, I get it, right? But if it's NBA 2K, like I wonder what he'll say, like what he thinks about that, because that's, now we're kind of getting more into his territory. He knows the game, so he can watch. You know, he knows the sport, so he could probably watch the game, obviously, and follow it. And maybe it's just something else to fill his time. Maybe, I guess, during the off season. I guess they do it during the on season. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like, thinking about it, I was kind of thinking about this from the perspective of organizations getting involved in esports, but this could be the sort of thing that sort of helps people who would be into esports if they could get past it's a video game. Like, a lot of the same sort of general concepts apply, right? Like, you've got a team that you follow, or you've got a player that you follow, and you're really into that player and you want to see them do well, so you watch their games. And when they do well and they're doing impressive things, you're like, wow, that's really cool, etc. Like, there's actually a lot of similarities between the idea of sports fandom and esports fandom. Yeah. Largely by design.
Of course.
It's just when one of them is a 12-year-old white dude and the other one is LeBron James, that's like, okay, this is something that a lot of people just can't quite get past.
Yeah.
So having something that bridges the gap a little bit more like this might help with mainstream acceptance of esports a little bit more. I don't know that I would particularly watch people playing NBA 2K esports, but that's not because I'm not really interested, and more because there's other esports I would probably rather watch, if that makes sense. Like, there's something League of Legends on all the time. There's something Hearthstone on all the time. There's something Counter-Strike on all the time. There's probably something that I personally would rather watch.
Sure.
But that's the funny thing about opinions, is they're different between people.
Yeah.
So
and this goes back to the, you know, people have no idea how many other people are playing like NBA 2K, for example. Pardon me. There's a lot of people who watch sports, who play sports games, you know, and you know they're as good. They are as good as they think they could be, and you know maybe they're like, yeah, I could probably be better at playing this game, you know. So they at least have familiarity with the game, and they're not going to go and pick just like random people. They're going to pick people who are really fucking good at this game. Yeah. And so being able to watch that, there's a little bit of like kind of bewilderment there, where it's like, holy crap, I didn't know you could do that. And it's kind of like when you or I, or anybody that's listening to this, watches somebody run a game on like, you know, like hardcore mode or something. You're like, holy crap, like I didn't know you could do that. And you learn from it. And it's interesting to watch, because here's this person who's so much better than you playing this game.
Like I watch Rudism playing Rocket League with a guitar, and he's 50,000 times better than I will ever be with an actual controller.
Yeah. And you know what? Like if you can bet on it, and if you can sponsor it, it's going to be successful, because they will. And it's a bit of a reach for me to say this. I get it, but if there's money that can be made there, then they will do everything they can to make it happen. Yep. Especially if it doesn't take money out of anywhere else, in terms of like, you know, it's not going to be replacing NBA, right? Like the actual sport. It's just going to be another form of revenue for them. And if they can make money off it, they're going to do it. They're going to push it. They're going to make it seem like it's the coolest fucking thing. They will. They'll market it.
Yep.
And people like my brother-in-law Scott will be like, oh yeah, this is the greatest thing to ever happen.
Yeah. Or they'll be like, you've taken this game that I like and put a whole bunch of white kids in it, and now I'm not as interested in it.
Yeah.
So we've managed to actually get through most of the actual topics that we had, which is cool.
We did? Oh wow! I'm just now running out of whiskey.
Yeah.
Let me see.
So I have two things I'd like to mention.
Okay.
One is that I got a PSVR and it's great, and it's actually like the Vive is better quality. I got to play around with a Vive a few weeks ago in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
It's better quality. It's an overall better setup because of the like things in the corner and everything. But man, the PSVR is comfy and it's easy to use and it's just straightforward. And did I mention that it's comfy? Like, it actually feels really, really good to wear. And it has a lot of the same games as well.
You were playing Job Simulator the other day. I was watching you for a bit.
Yeah.
Friday, I think. Yeah, it seemed I used it once. Ryan has it, right? And so I was playing it at his place because he has everything. And I was playing it there, and honestly, it's not as good as the Vive. But sorry, I should say unsurprisingly, it's not as good as, say, a Vive. But it still worked, and it was still like a shitload better than like a Gear VR or something. And it was functional.
Better.
Yeah, and it was functional and it worked, and it was the response time was a little bit slower than I was used to with the Vive, but I mean, it wasn't nauseating or anything like that. Like you could totally do. I mean, I was watching you like doing what everybody does when they first play Job Simulator. When you go to the office, you just start chucking shit at people. Like everything. Yep. By the end of your first session, there's nothing left in your cubicle because you've thrown it all at your coworkers. Like it's the first thing everybody does.
Yeah.
But but the price point is great.
Price point is, yes, it's definitely a plus.
Mm-hmm. It's like half the price of, or less than half the price, I think, of a Vive, right? Was it $299? I think.
No, it's $399.
$399. Okay, so half the price of a Vive then.
Well, okay, so it's $399 for just the headset, but you also need the Move controllers, which if you don't already have them, is another $100.
Yeah.
At which point you might as well just buy the $499 bundle.
But if you were to say, you need to get if you had nothing, you'd have to buy the PS4 Pro, the Vive, the PSVR, and then whatever else, Move controllers, all that stuff. You would still come out much less than a Vive or an Oculus and a capable PC.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the biggest thing with PSVR is that it's so much more financially accessible for most people.
Yeah, for sure. And like it doesn't like I'll probably get a PS4 Pro at some point to see if it ups the visual quality on it at all. Right now it does get a little bit grainy. Mm-hmm. But even on my regular PS4, like it's still at a high frame rate. I'm pretty sure it's 60 frames per second. It's responsive, like it runs off of just a regular PS4, which so many people already have at this point.
Yeah.
The number of people who have a PS4 versus the number of people who have a PC capable of running the Vive there's a little bit of a wait there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So it's the sort of thing that can actually take VR and really push it mainstream.
And
like,
good.
I was just gonna say, if you're gonna be super, super serious about VR, then yes, you should probably spring out the cash for the PC and the Vive, and you'll get a better VR experience out of that. Mm-hmm. But man, if you just wanna sit back and throw some shit at your office mates, pick up the PSVR, grab Job Simulator. I was playing Eve Valkyrie, which is super fun.
I missed it. I wanted to watch that stream. I totally missed it.
Oh, it's super fun. Mm-hmm. It's really good.
Yeah, so what you're probably getting is, I think what you're getting is 45 hertz per eye or something. So basically 45 probably. Frames per second. It might be 60, but I don't know how they could squeeze that in when it's. Well, no, actually, no, they could, because the PSVR headset, I think, has the highest frequency rating versus the other headsets. So which would make it technically scale, I guess, the best of all the headsets. But so it's 120 hertz.
Yeah, according to the PlayStation VR subreddit, PSVR is capable. It has a 960 by 1080 per eye,
which is screen. Pretty close to the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can operate at 90 hertz or 120 hertz.
There you go.
So I'm guessing that 90 hertz is what you get through a PS4, and 120 is probably what you get through the PS4 Pro.
Probably, yeah. And it's, I know that they were major sticklers with that. They were like, if your game drops below 60 frames per second at any point, then you're off. And I think that probably, if the max is 45, then that's clearly what he meant. But I think it was more like, we don't want a poor user experience because of your shitty optimization or because you didn't want to sacrifice something for something else for performance. Yeah, I mean there's nothing wrong with the PSVR. The Move is already there. I think
it's great.
Yeah, you love it. The ease of use though, like the ease of use has got to be great. Like you could have it in your living room,
Yeah.
I guess technically you could have a Vive in your living room too, but I mean, let's be realistic here with like, homes and families or roommates or whatever. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Like if I were to get a Vive, I don't have space next to my computer to set everything up for that. I would have to set it up in my living room, and that would be a huge pain in the ass. And then I would need to either bring a computer out there or, like, my laptop could probably run a Vive. But now this is super complicated, whereas it's just really easy for me to say, oh, yeah, PSVR. It's just, there's just space here because this is my living room and not my computer room.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'll have to try it again. Get a better feel of it playing different games because I don't remember. I was really fucked up, but so I don't remember. I remember I was taking like mental notes and I was like, do not forget this, unlike the latency thing and like just like kind of general stuff, but I don't remember what game I was playing. Jesus.
Well, next time you find your way down here, you can play around with mine a bit.
Oh yeah, I will.
Yeah. Or I mean, go play with Ryan's, but
whatever.
That's less interesting to me personally.
So,
yeah.
What is this Into the Breach thing?
Oh, so Into the Breach is a new game being made by the creators of FTL.
Oh, yes. Okay, I do know this. Go ahead.
And it looks very like Advance Wars. Like I'm really, really excited for it. They have a trailer out, and the gameplay looked pretty cool. There's like terrain changing stuff that happens. It's very, very grid oriented, turn based. Again, if you've ever played Advance Wars, it's basically Advance Wars, but a lot more advanced. Lol.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of isometric turn-based games or any like turn-based games. Like I'll play them a little bit, and I think like Incognita was one that I was kind of into for a minute, but even that one couldn't hold my attention. It was Incognita. I can't remember, but maybe Invisible Ink. I think is what I can't remember what name they went with, but I just can't quite get myself into those games for the long term. That being said, I also wasn't into games like FTL, that kind of like ship management / strategy or whatever. I wasn't into those kinds of games before I played FTL. So they made the game fun. They made it easy. Like the procedural generation, you had a different adventure every time, the challenge. And so they found a way to make it work for people like me who are not into that. So, maybe they could do it again with turn-based. And visually, when you look at it, you almost feel like you're looking at, it takes place in the FTL universe because the aliens and stuff, like little creatures and stuff that they have on there, they look like the same little creatures that you've seen, just from a different perspective, of course, in FTL. And maybe this is happening in different areas of the world. There's conflict. There's gonna be rebels and all that stuff. Like that's maybe it might be kind of cool.
Yeah, maybe it is the war that leads up to your mission in FTL.
Oh man, cool. Yeah. And Ben Prunty is actually going to be on board for the soundtrack as well.
Nice.
So
yeah, I think I saw that they already have some of the soundtrack available. Let me see if I can find that again.
I didn't see that. I mean, it's probably something in the trailer, but
yeah, I guess. Oh yeah, So there's a 3-minute and 10-second YouTube clip that's just one of the songs from the soundtrack.
10-second, awesome.
No, 3-minute and 10 seconds.
Sorry, I missed the 3-minute part.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's just one of the songs from Into the Breach.
Nice.
That's cool. Yeah. I watched most of the first Liv and I watched most of the first season of The Expanse.
Which
it's really good.
Everybody is talking about, and I didn't realize this is the show that I should be watching.
Oh, well, in that case, it's probably all right. Am I doing it right?
The fuck?
Pretend that I am you trying to tell me about Mr. Robot.
No. How about
I guess The Expanse is kind of
I'm going to tell you how I told you that fucking Mr. Robot was good, and whatever the other show was that you started watching. Okay, here's how you do it. All right. So first, make sure there's nothing in your hands, and you have your keyboard. Push your keyboard towards your monitor. Put both hands flat with your fingers spread. All right, like flat on the desk. Okay, and then lean forward, and then you say things like, oh my God, you have to do this or whatever. Okay. It's important to have the stance correct though, because that stance means that's the, oh my God, you have it blank stance. Right.
It's a good thing that the current position of your body comes through so well on this podcast.
It helps you with the delivery, man. It's like when you sing, like you got to stand up so there's room and everything. I don't know. But it is clearly something that I need to check out, I guess.
Yeah. So I was surprised by it because, like, I mean, I won't say it's the best show ever. Like, it's not as good as Mr. Robot, I don't think. And I've heard a lot of people. I never really actually watched Battlestar Galactica, but I heard a lot of people saying that it's not quite as good as that. But it's pretty good. There's lots of really good like intrigue and political stuff going on in there. I've been really, really impressed with how like the attention, the minor details that they pay attention to for like, this is way in the future, right? Like there's Earth and there's Mars, and Earth and Mars are kind of like maybe going to fight each other or something, on the brink of war. They're in like a Cold War sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the asteroid belt, or the belt. And that's where a lot of the characters that you are following are from. But it's like super far in the future. And so there's little touches, like there was one scene in one of the earlier episodes where they're just doing like this, generic establishing shot. This is New York City. Let's do like from the helicopter flying past the Statue of Liberty shot of New York City. But around the Statue of Liberty was just a whole bunch of basically like a dike, and I don't mean that I'm like the thing to block water, not because. And it was once I realized what that was, I was like, holy shit, that's actually really smart. What they've done here is they've said this is far enough in the future, the ocean levels have risen, so they had to build dams around the Statue of Liberty in order for it to not go underwater. That's just kind of cool. That's the sort of thing that I can appreciate, and it helps sell the fantasy of it a little bit more.
Right. I mean, if you believe in global warming, I guess. Sorry, wow. I can't even say that with a straight face. Wow. I can't even say it.
All right.
They just lost half of their viewership.
Yeah. All right.
I'm sorry. Oh God. I will have to check it out. The
first season is on Amazon Prime. It's sci-fi too, which caught me off guard. I didn't expect to like something from sci-fi, but it's pretty good.
Well, they had the what was that series? The oh my God, I can't remember the name. Sorry, I'm getting texts from Shizzle right now. So there's a dam, just slight deviation here. There's a dam called the Orwell. I think it's the Oroville Dam. I can't remember, but it's north of Sacramento. And Shizzle lives in the Sacramento area or something. And it's like miles north. And so I text him and I was like, hey man, is this damage? Are you good? I'm sure you're good, but just want to check. And I guess he just piped in and he's all like, oh God, went outside. I need to build an arc. Send instructions. So rip Shizzle. Anyway, so yeah, Defiance. That's what I was thinking of.
Defiance.
Yeah, Defiance turned out to be okay. For me, maybe better for others, and probably worse for others as well. But it turned out to be pretty okay, I think. And that was on Sci-Fi, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it was.
If it wasn't, then my memory is really fucked up.
That was that weird, like, there was a game to go along with the show. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, it was an interesting concept. But I liked the first season. I didn't watch the second season though. Yeah.
Well, all right. I think we've exhausted the number of pods that we can cast.
Oh, that's a really interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, there are no more pods.
All right.
Therefore, no further pods may be cast this evening.
The end. Done.
The end. Yeah, we're done.